Viewers around the world, it's a beautiful thing to have us here again. Today is the day number 4 of this conference going on so far on sustainable development. And once again, I would like to still introduce myself as the host or your host for today's topic. My humble self, I still remain and I haven't changed. My name is Oji Sunday Michael. For Wapno Talks, I am the International Relation Officer. At this junction, I want to welcome us, the viewers out there, and my two honorable guest speakers for today. I want to welcome us to this conference, which says Plant Your Future campaign, an initiative of POUP 1.0. Right. It is a comprehensive conference on several essential issues of climate change with educatory guidance from UNICEF, a resemblance of the Sustainable Development Program. Today is day 4, like I said earlier, and the topic for today, which we shall be hearing from both horses' mouths, is climate change causes wildfires, which leads to loss of life and long-term respiratory problem. And lastly, before we have the first guest speaker to share his view on today's topic, I would like to appreciate this set of companies for making it possible for this conference to be happening as we have been taking it, which has led us to today being the 4th day of the program. I would like to appreciate our media partner in person of or in group of or in company of Mute Break. I also want to have partner Lumba Updates. And blogging partner, we still want to appreciate them too, which are called Teen Holds. And then I also want to appreciate the organizing partner. Of course, they still remain LWT, our special partner, Startup Times. We also appreciate you. And of course, I cannot start to hear from any of the speakers without also appreciating Wapno Talks, which happen to be the host of this very event and conference that is going on sustainable development. Right. First speaker for today, Dr. Shomik Chakraborty is registered with medicine doctor in West Bengal University of Health Sciences, Delhi, in India. Right. And then he is currently working as a resident medical officer in GD Diabetes Hospital, former RMO of AIMS, New Delhi, Department of Emergency Medicine for ICCU RMO, Amri Hospital, Kolkata. And straight down to his achievements, okay, he has completed workshop on ACLS, BLS in AIMS, New Delhi. For those of us that are familiar with India, New Delhi, you will know where AIMS or where AIMS is. And then for one of his achievements again is that more so, he has also completed workshop in emergency ultrasonography in AIMS, New Delhi. So pardon me if I didn't pronounce that medical terminology there properly. You could just make the correction while you're making it. So at this junction, I would like us to have Dr. Shomik Chakraborty for his view on today's topic. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Hello. I am Dr. Shomik Chakraborty, and today I will be presenting you my thoughts on what climate change is doing, especially to respiratory health in people all over the world. So when we think about climate change, the first thing that comes into our minds is probably glaciers and rising sea levels and the every existential points that we can think of when we first think of climate change, rising CO2 levels. But how does it directly affect our health? So the answer is quite complex. It's not really cause and effect. there isn't really one action which causes our health to deteriorate. It happens indirectly. So what climate change does is it changes the pathological the ecology of the pathogens that inhibit our surroundings. So when I say ecology, I mean the ecosystem in which all pathogens survive. Things like mosquitoes, rats, flies, microbes, viruses, all of these things are pathogens. So they inhabit the environment around us and we have to coexist with them. We cannot escape them. We cannot be bereft of them. But what climate change does is it changes our interaction with each other. So it becomes more difficult for us to coexist with them. One of the biggest things that climate change and especially air pollution because of global forest fires, deforestation, and rising CO2 levels is it has triggered an epidemic of sorts, a pandemic, I would rather say, of allergies all over the world. So, one of the biggest things that I have seen while working in different departments is that whenever it came during the winters, there was a spike of diseases. And especially in India, the spike started a bit early from Diwali because during Diwali, a lot of firecrackers are burned. A lot of farmers burn crops which were leftovers from the harvest. So, because of that, there is a rise in suspended particulates all over the atmosphere, which is why a lot of respiratory problems are triggered. So, the first people who are susceptible to such diseases are people with underlying respiratory conditions. For example, asthma. It is estimated that 1 in 3 individuals all over the world have some form of respiratory disease or the other. So, asthma is one of the most commonest respiratory diseases which stay with us for our entire lives. The other most commonest respiratory illness that we develop over time is COPD, or chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder. This is a kind of disease that solely depends on our environment. We seldom are susceptible to COPD. It is our environment which influences our development of this disease. What it does is it damages the small parts of our lungs, because of which later on in life, while we reach our middle age, we cannot expand our lungs as much as possible. It restricts our ability of our lungs to expand. So this is also one disease which we've been seeing has been steadily increasing over the last few years. So more research has to be done to establish a direct link between COPD and our environmental changes. But I would say there is a lot of circumstantial evidence to suggest that that is the case. Other than that, allergies, like I mentioned before, cause one of the biggest problems due to which can be directly linked to climate change. So what allergies does is it changes our ecology. Is what allergies are a result of is because of if environmental factors which trigger our allergies. So there are a lot of things which can trigger our allergies. Say the more commonest example is pollen. Then there is suspended particulates, carbon particulates, the things that are come off after we burn something. So these are the kind of triggers which excites or like starts an allergy in our body. And with climate change, the ecology has been changing so much that different types of allergens also have been coming into light. We have found people are getting allergic to more and more things rather than the things which were common before. So some of the reasons because of that is climate change has started having an effect on our weather and on our seasons. So now we have more of a dry season or a season where there is a lot of heat, and followed by that there is a lot of precipitation, there is a lot of rainfall. So what this does is it creates a very fertile land for a lot of pathogens to grow. Because as we know, a lot of sunlight and a lot of water will cause a lot of vegetation to grow. And that in itself again leads to a lot of new pathogens. And trees which were not producing pollens for that long period of time has now been producing pollens almost all throughout the year, which is why the amount of pathogens, the amount of allergens that was available to uh, the environment has increased steadily. And not only that, there are other pathogens also, like rats, like bees, all kinds of fleas. Recently, you might have heard about a locust outbreak in Central Asia. So this locust outbreak is a direct result of climate change and deforestation and forest fires. So these locusts carry not only destruction of crops, which may lead to famine and malnutrition, they are also uh, a direct cause. They are also acting as a vector, carrying diseases from one continent to the other, which is why I feel that there needs to be more study into establishing direct correlations between climate change and how it affects our respiratory diseases. So I have a few more examples. Um, so there are certain pathogens which are only responsive to certain different changes in our environment. So some pathogens are directly correlated to the temperature of our environment. So if it's extremely cold, certain pathogens are more likely to spread. Like, for example, influenza. Influenza spreads rapidly if there is a low humid and low temperature climate, which is what we're seeing in many countries. Most of the Western countries, they have low humidity and low temperatures. And because of climate change, because of increased greenhouse effects, those conditions have been getting harsher almost every year. And now, with the advent of a pandemic, we've seen in real time what effect it can have. Even things like humidity and geographical location has a huge role to play. So with the rising sea levels, we are losing more and more of our fertile lands. And because of that, we are losing access to a lot of food and crops that we would have grown over there. That in itself is leading to malnutrition and all kinds of diseases. And also, it is known that 50% of our world's population at this moment live in urban areas. So as we're losing more and more of our fertile lands, and as climate change is forcing people to seek a better economical status, we're moving more and more towards urban areas. And what that is doing is it's causing overcrowding. It's causing a drop in sanitation. And diseases, especially in India, like TB, tuberculosis, and cholera, and malaria, dengue, these are all also on the rise. Tuberculosis has been a disease which is almost endemic to India, because the highest concentration of tuberculosis patients exist in India. And as we increase our overcrowding and decrease our access to good hygiene and sanitation, these diseases will not go away, and climate change will only worsen them. And with the advent of the recent pandemic, which I wanted to touch upon also, this has not been the first virus which has suddenly propped up because of certain environmental factors. There has been many other viruses like the MERS virus, the Middle Eastern virus, the SARS virus, and even Ebola. These are all results of environmental changes and how humans interact with our environment, causing more and more permutations and combinations of different viruses mutating with each other and forming new strains. The SARS virus, the MERS virus, and the recent COVID-19 virus are all part of the same family, but they are all existing in fertile conditions for viruses to mutate and form new strains, which is why we are seeing more and more diseases coming up every year. Recently, there was a new disease called the Hanta virus, and all of these viruses have a common host. They're mostly found in bats, pangolins, etc. But since human had never before encroached upon their habitat, they they never really had the opportunity to transfer themselves onto humans. But now this is happening because of their loss in habitat and our need to encroach upon new land. But there is also a silver lining in this. Uh, what needs to be done for global warming or for any kind of climate change factors is a collective effort of different countries coming together, overlooking their differences, and working together in action. If anything has to be taken away from the pandemic that is happening now, the COVID-19 pandemic, is the response of the entire world to it. There is a silver lining there. The entire world is coordinating with each other and finding routes and means to ensure that the vaccine, which will come, is going to be as fast as is going to come as fast as possible. The production, the manufacture, the distribution, everything is seamless. Things that we are doing by enforcing a lockdown, by slowing economic activities, by making sure that things which were absolutely not mandatory, like say an office meeting, can be conducted over the net, and restricting how many people can travel at the same time. These things have found to have had a positive impact on our environment, and we should take note of this, that collective action is possible, but we need to find the motivation to make that happen. The difference between the pandemic and climate change is that the pandemic is very direct. There is direct correlation between cause and effect. But global warming or climate change, there is no direct correlation between cause and effect. We can't really say for sure, or we can't really see with our own eyes that the temperature of the world is rising, and because of that, this disease has killed this person. We cannot make that correlation. And we can't really take any direct action which will lead to a consequence. With the COVID-19 pandemic, we can wear a mask and we'll be kind of safe from it. But with climate change, all that can be done is reduce our carbon footprint, and the effects will be seen over decades, not immediately. So I think this pandemic is a good learning point for the future of the world, and how we can take points from our own actions and apply them to something else right now. That is more or less what I have to share. I am sorry if it wasn't very structured, but thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much, sir. And no matter how it is, but trust me, you have given good, vital information. And from the case studies you mentioned, example, if I will say, regarding the case of Ebola, when it was a widespread thing, then I remember I was when I was working in the bank before I resigned. This case of Ebola came up then, and everybody was scared in my country, and
Mm,
then it brought kind of serious fear. And according to rumor that was going on, that the best way to kill it is to put salt in hot water and then you bath with it. So a lot of people did excess of it and it killed some people. But somehow we conquered that period. So I just want to say, from what you said so far, knowing something is very important, because what you don't know, but what you know will find a
Exactly.
solution for you, irrespective of the situation you find yourself. So it's a good thing that we know from what you shared that there is still solution, and this is what should be done in cases like this. So thank you so much, sir. You've really spoken well. We appreciate your time spending with us to give us your own view on today's topic. Thank you once again, sir.
Thank you so
Please
much.
let me kindly.